Hey AC Sports fans, welcome to an epic journey through the life and lore of one of Dota 2's most stylish and enigmatic heroes, Pangolier. Today we're diving deep into the story of Donte Panlin, the dashing swordsman from the legendary Nivan Gallants. His quest for adventure and the ultimate duel has left an unforgettable mark on the world of Dota 2. So kick back, relax, and let's explore the life of the hero who turns every battle into a grand performance. Our story begins in the peaceful and prosperous land of Nivan, home to the illustrious Nivan Gallants. This elite group of master duelists, trained in the art of the blade from a young age, following a strict code of honor. Among these gallants was Donte Panlin, a young man who stood out not just for his skill, but for his charm, wit, and rebellious spirit. Donte was born into a noble family with a long tradition of producing exceptional duelists. From the moment he could walk, it was clear he was destined for greatness. But unlike his peers who focused solely on mastering the blade, Donte saw swordplay as more than just a martial art. To him, it was a way to express himself, to dance with danger, and emerge victorious. He trained with a blend of discipline and creativity, often frustrating his instructors, who admired his talent, but worried about his unorthodox methods. As Donte grew, so did his reputation. By the time he was a teenager, he was already one of the finest swordsmen in Nivan. His movements were a blur of speed and precision, each strike delivered with a grace that left onlookers in awe. Yet, despite his skill, Donte wasn't content. The life of a gallant, with its strict codes and rigid traditions, felt like a cage to him. He longed for freedom, for a life where he could truly be himself. His desire for adventure was fueled by stories of the world beyond Nivan. Wild lands where danger lurked around every corner, where the strong survived and the weak perished. These tales ignited a fire within Donte, a burning need to break free from the confines of his noble upbringing and forge his own path. To truly understand Donte Panlin, you have to understand the Nivan Gallants. Founded centuries ago, the Gallants were more than just duelists. They were a brotherhood bound by a strict code of honor. This code emphasized discipline, respect, and above all, honor. A gallant was expected to embody these virtues and serve as an example for others to follow. But for Donte, this code was a double-edged sword. While he respected his people's traditions, he found them stifling. The rigid rules left little room for creativity or spontaneity, the kind of daring exploits Donte craved. He chafed against the expectations placed on him, yearning for a life that was less ordinary. Despite his rebellious nature, Donte excelled in his training. He mastered the blade with ease, much to the frustration of his instructors who wished he would take the code more seriously. But Donte wasn't one to be bound by tradition. He often pushed the limits of what was acceptable, adding flourishes to his techniques that, while undeniably effective, were considered unorthodox by the gallants. His peers were divided. Some admired his skill and envied his talent, while others viewed him with disdain, seeing him as a threat to their traditions. But Donte paid little mind to their opinions. He was determined to live life on his own terms, even if it meant breaking the rules. The day finally came when Donte could no longer ignore the call of the world beyond Nivan. It was a fateful evening, after yet another duel that ended in victory, albeit with a flourish that left his opponent more embarrassed than defeated. As he stood in the moonlit courtyard, surrounded by the silent stares of his fellow gallants, Donte made a decision that would change his life forever. He decided to leave Nivan, forsaking the life of a noble for the freedom of the open road. His heart raced with excitement and a tinge of sadness as he bid farewell to the only life he had ever known. But there was no turning back. With his rapier in hand and a few belongings packed, Donte set out into the unknown, ready to embrace the life of a vagabond. The journey was not easy. The roads were treacherous, and the world beyond Nivan was far more dangerous than Donte had imagined. But with every challenge he faced, his resolve only grew stronger. He honed his skills further, adapting to the harsh realities of life on the road. And with each new town he visited, Donte Panlin became less of a noble gallant, and more of the legend known as Pangolier. Before long, the tales of Pangolier began to spread. He was the dashing rogue who could disarm a dozen men without breaking a sweat, the charming swordsman who left a trail of admirers and enemies wherever he went. But for Pangolier, the journey was only just beginning. The world was vast, and he was determined to explore every corner of it, seeking out new adventures and, most importantly, the ultimate duel. As Pangolier ventured deeper into the unknown, his adventures became more perilous, and his challenges more formidable. But with each new encounter, his reputation as a master duelist and fearless adventurer grew. Stories of his exploits spread like wildfire, painting him as a figure both revered and feared, a man who could dance with death and emerge unscathed, a rogue with a heart of gold, and a blade that never missed its mark. In the Sunken Isles, where land meets sea in a treacherous dance, Pangolier faced one of his most cunning adversaries, Captain Riptide, the infamous pirate lord. The Sunken Isles were a haven for outlaws, where only the strongest survived, and Captain Riptide ruled with an iron fist. His crew was ruthless, and his ship feared across the seas for its speed and firepower. When Pangolier arrived in the Sunken Isles, he was met with suspicion. The pirates there respected only strength, and many sought to challenge the newcomer. But Pangolier, ever the showman, welcomed these challenges. He disarmed his foes with ease, his rapier a blur of silver in the dim light of the pirate coves. But it was the duel with Captain Riptide that would become the stuff of legend. The duel took place on the deck of Riptide's ship, under a sky darkened by storm clouds. The sea churned beneath them, and the ship rocked violently with each wave. But neither Pangolier nor Riptide was deterred. The pirate lord was a giant of a man, his strength unmatched by any in the Isles. But Pangolier's agility and skill were more than a match for brute force. The duel was fierce, each strike of their blades accompanied by the crash of thunder and the flash of lightning. The crew watched in awe as Pangolier moved with the grace of a dancer, dodging Riptide's powerful blows and striking with pinpoint precision. The battle raged on, each combatant pushing the other to their limits. In the end, it was Pangolier's cunning that won the day. Using the ship's rocking to his advantage, he timed his final strike perfectly, disarming Riptide and sending his blade skittering across the deck. The pirate lord, defeated but impressed, bowed to Pangolier, acknowledging his superior skill. From that day forward, the pirates of the Sunken Isles spoke of Pangolier with a mix of fear and respect, his legend growing with each retelling. But for Pangolier, the victory was just another step on his journey. He left the Sunken Isles as he had arrived, alone, with only his rapier and his wits to guide him. The road ahead was long, and many more challenges awaited him. But Pangolier was undeterred. He knew that the ultimate duel was still out there, waiting for him, and he would not rest until he found it. From the Sunken Isles, Pangolier journeyed to the Mistwoods, a place of ancient magic and lurking dangers. The Mistwoods were a vast, tangled forest where few dared to venture. It was said that the woods were alive, that they whispered secrets to those who could hear them, and that ancient beings prowled the shadows, waiting for the unwary. Pangolier entered the Mistwoods with a sense of excitement. He had heard tales of the creatures that dwelled there, the dire wolves, the shadowy figures that moved through the trees like phantoms, and the mysterious beings known only as the Watchers. But Pangolier was not one to be deterred by stories of danger. He saw the Mistwoods as another challenge, another opportunity to test his skills. As he ventured deeper into the forest, Pangolier felt the air grow colder, the trees closing in around him. The Mistwoods were a place of perpetual twilight, where the sun's light barely penetrated the thick canopy. The ground was covered in a thick layer of mist, making each step uncertain. But Pangolier moved with confidence, his senses attuned to the slightest sound, the faintest movement. It wasn't long before he encountered the dire wolves. These massive, fearsome creatures were the true rulers of the Mistwoods, their howls echoing through the forest like a haunting melody. They hunted in packs, their eyes glowing with a feral intelligence. Pangolier knew that to face them head-on would be suicide, but he also knew that he could not avoid them forever. The battle with the dire wolves was one of the most intense of Pangolier's life. The pack surrounded him, their growls low and menacing. But Pangolier was not intimidated. He moved with a fluid grace, his rapier flashing in the dim light as he parried their attacks and struck back with precision. The wolves were relentless, but Pangolier was faster, his movements a blur of motion as he danced around them. One by one the wolves fell, until only the alpha remained. This creature was larger and more powerful than the others, its eyes burning with a fierce intelligence. The duel between them was a test of strength and skill, each combatant pushing the other to their limits. But in the end, Pangolier's agility and cunning won out. With a final, decisive strike, he brought the Alpha down, the victory hard fought and well earned. The battle with the dire wolves earned Pangolier the respect of the Mistwoods inhabitants. The forest, once hostile and forbidding, seemed to open up to him, its secrets revealed bit by bit. He encountered other creatures, some friendly, others dangerous, but all part of the Mistwoods' mysterious ecosystem. Pangolier learned to navigate the forest's labyrinthine paths, his senses attuned to its subtle cues. But even as he explored the Mistwoods, Pangolier knew that his journey was far from over. The ultimate duel still eluded him, and the road ahead was filled with more challenges, more dangers, and more adventures. But Pangolier was ready. With his rapier in hand and his heart full of determination, he pressed on, ever in search of the duel that would define his legacy. From the Mistwoods, Pangolier journeyed north to the frozen wastes of the Winter Wyvern's domain. The icy tundra was a place of harsh beauty, where the cold could freeze a man's breath in his lungs, and the wind howled like a beast. It was here that Pangolier faced one of his most formidable foes, a frost giant, a creature of immense power and ancient wrath. The frost giants were a race of beings as old as the mountains themselves, their bodies made of ice and stone, their eyes glowing with a cold blue light. They were guardians of the frozen wastes, protecting their territory with a ferocity that few could match. But Pangolier, ever seeking new challenges, saw the frost giant as a worthy opponent. The journey to the frost giant's lair was treacherous. The cold bit at Pangolier's flesh, the wind cutting through his clothes like a knife. But he pressed on, his resolve unwavering. The landscape around him was a stark, white wilderness, the snow blinding and the ice treacherous. But Pangolier moved with purpose, his eyes fixed on the distant mountains where the frost giant was said to dwell. As he approached the giant's lair, Pangolier felt a sense of foreboding. The air was thick with magic, the ground beneath his feet crackling with energy. The lair was a massive ice cave, its walls glistening with frost, its entrance guarded by towering icicles. But Pangolier was undeterred. He stepped into the cave, his breath visible in the cold air, his rapier at the ready. The frost giant was a sight to behold, a towering figure of ice and stone, its presence filling the cave with an oppressive weight. Its eyes, glowing with an eerie blue light, locked onto Pangolier, and with a roar that shook the very walls of the cave, the giant charged. The battle that followed was one of epic proportions. The frost giant's strength was immense, each of its blows capable of shattering the ice beneath Pangolier's feet. But Pangolier was quick, his movements a blur as he dodged the giant's attacks and struck back with his rapier. The cold bit at him, the giant's breath freezing the air around him. But Pangolier fought on, his determination unyielding. The duel was a test of endurance and skill, each combatant pushing the other to their limits. The giant's strength was matched by Pangolier's agility, its wrath by his cunning. The cave shook with the force of their battle, the ice cracking and splintering underfoot. But Pangolier, with his unrelenting will, finally found the opening he needed. With a precise and powerful strike, he brought the giant down, the battle won, and the legend of Pangolier growing ever larger. The defeat of the frost giant was a monumental achievement, one that solidified Pangolier's reputation as one of the greatest duelists and adventurers of his time. But even this victory did not satisfy his thirst for the ultimate duel. The road ahead still beckoned, filled with untold dangers and challenges that only Pangolier could face. As Pangolier continued his journey, word began to spread of a conflict unlike any other, a battle that drew warriors from all corners of the world, where the stakes were nothing less than the fate of the ancients themselves. This was a battlefield where legends were made, and where the greatest warriors tested their mettle against each other. For Pangolier, this was the challenge he had been searching for. The call to the battlefield was irresistible, a place where he could finally find the duel he had been seeking, where he could face opponents worthy of his skill. And so, with his rapier in hand and his heart full of anticipation, Pangolier set out for the ancient battlefields, ready to prove himself against the best of the best. The battlefield was a place of chaos and order, where the forces of Radiant and Dire clashed in an eternal struggle. Here, Pangolier found himself among heroes and villains, gods and monsters, each with their own reasons for fighting. The air was thick with the scent of blood and steel, the ground stained with the remnants of countless battles. But for Pangolier, this was where he truly belonged. The battlefield was his stage, the combatants his audience, and the duel his performance. He relished the opportunity to face off against warriors of unmatched skill, to test his mettle in a place where only the strongest survived. The duels Pangolier fought on the battlefield were like nothing he had ever experienced. Each opponent was a master in their own right, each battle a test of his skill, cunning, and resolve. He faced heroes with powers beyond comprehension, villains with strength that could shatter mountains, and creatures of myth and legend. Yet Pangolier thrived in this environment. His rapier became an extension of his will, his movements a blur of speed and precision. He danced through the battlefield, his strikes swift and deadly, his wit as sharp as his blade. The chaos of battle only fueled his determination, each victory bringing him closer to the ultimate duel he sought. It was then that Pangolier encountered a warrior unlike any he had ever faced before, a figure shrouded in mystery, whose very presence seemed to warp the fabric of reality. This warrior, known only as the Eternal Blade, was said to be the embodiment of the duel itself, a being who had fought and defeated every opponent who had ever challenged them. The Eternal Blade was the duel that Pangolier had been seeking all his life, the final test of his skill and resolve. The battlefield fell silent as the two warriors faced each other, the air thick with anticipation. Pangolier could feel the weight of the moment, the culmination of his entire journey leading to this one final battle. But as Pangolier raised his rapier, ready to engage in the duel of his life, something unexpected happened. The Eternal Blade lowered their weapon and spoke, their voice calm and steady. "Why do you seek this duel, Donte Panlin?" the Eternal Blade asked. "What do you hope to gain from this battle?" Pangolier was taken aback. He had never considered the question before, never truly examined why he sought the ultimate duel. Was it glory he sought? Validation? Or was it something deeper, something that had driven him all these years without him realizing it? For the first time, Pangolier hesitated. The thrill of the duel, the joy of the dance, the satisfaction of victory, these were all part of his journey. But now, standing before the Eternal Blade, he realized that the duel was not the end, but a means to an end. It was the journey, the experiences, the people he had met that mattered. The duel, in the end, was just another battle. With a smile, Pangolier lowered his rapier. "I no longer need this duel," he said. "I have already found what I was looking for." The Eternal Blade nodded, a knowing look in their eyes. "You have learned the true lesson of the duel," they said. "It is not the battle itself, but the journey that defines us." And with that, the Eternal Blade vanished, leaving Pangolier alone on the battlefield. The duel that had driven him for so long was over before it began. But Pangolier felt no regret. He had found his answer, and in doing so, he had found peace. Pangolier continued to fight on the battlefield, not for the ultimate duel, but for the joy of the journey, the thrill of the dance. He fought with a renewed sense of purpose, his heart lighter than it had ever been. The warriors who fought alongside him could see the change in him, the calm confidence that came from a man who had found his true path. As the years passed, the legend of Pangolier grew. Stories of his exploits spread far and wide, of the dashing swordsman who could outfight and outwit any opponent, who could turn the tide of battle with a single, well-placed strike. But those who knew him best, who had fought alongside him, knew that Pangolier was more than just a duelist. He was a man who had lived life on his own terms, who had sought and found the true meaning of the duel. Eventually, Pangolier left the battlefield, his journey continuing beyond the wars of the Radiant and Dire. He returned to the open road, ever in search of new adventures, new challenges, and new stories to tell. But now he carried with him a sense of contentment, knowing that the journey was its own reward. He became a legend in his own right, a figure whose name would be remembered for generations. And though the ultimate duel was never fought, Pangolier's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who knew him, and in the stories that would be told for centuries to come. And so the tale of Donte Panlin, the dashing vagabond, comes to an end. But the journey continues, for in the world of Dota 2, there is always another adventure, another battle, and another story waiting to be told. And wherever that journey leads, you can be sure that Pangolier will be there, with a smile on his face and a rapier in his hand, ready to dance the dance of life once more. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey through the life and lore of Pangolier. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of Dota 2. Until next time, may your duels be thrilling and your adventures grand.